Hello, everybody, and welcome to our latest cybersecurity webinar, which is going to be navigating the Cybersecurity Resilience Bill. This was announced last year in September as part of the King's speech before the general election occurred, and has now been announced and is in its early stages before its ratification through Parliament, which I would predict would be sometime in the next year or so. As always, good to do a bit about grey matter. If you're new to us, we are a cloud solution and service provider with over 40 years of experience supporting technology-led companies like yours. And we have specialist teams in cybersecurity, Microsoft DevTools, and mapping. We're a part of the Climb Global Solutions, including a team of technical architects, and have offices based in the UK, Ireland, Canada, and USA. We have 5 C's of our focus, and for 40 years, we've really immersed ourselves in the world of software and technology, and the global team are there to share their expertise and help your business move with speed and confidence. Confidence is, of course, the first C. Feel completely confident in your next move. Capacity, gain quick, robust solutions that increase your capacity to deliver. Cost, optimize your spend with solutions that add real value. Consolidation, saving time, money, hassle with software and services in one place. And collaboration, find the expert you need wherever you are with our global team. First calling point is to note it has been a very busy first 6 months of the year when we look at the cybersecurity landscape and some of the, I'd say, rather prominent attacks on some major UK businesses, historic businesses, but also the continued attacks and threats against local councils, supply chain, government organisations, and even energy suppliers as well. M&S is the most recent, and they're still recovering from that. We're seeing further reports about the NHS software provider fine from last year over the attack on the London hospitals that put them out of action for 2 days. There have been data thefts at Glasgow City Council, along with 2 or 3 others, including Hackney, who are still addressing an attack that happened for them in 2020. Another major brand, such as Adidas, had their customer data stolen, and nobody is safe from cyber attacks, and that was from the council boss of, I think it was Borough Council in London. And that's why the government have really pushed through with the cyber resiliency bill, because all of these sectors are certainly the 3 that are up on screen here: supply chain, healthcare, energy, or if you're dealing as an MSP with businesses or a digital service supplier. They're putting this in to make the world a safer place and give people more preparation, and also an easy way to expand what you're doing, because as you'll find later on, they're putting changes in to make sure that anything that does need to be amended can also be done very quickly. Speaking of the head or the president of the National Cybersecurity Council, Pat McFadden, at Cyber UK this year, he said in the keynotes that in a world where cyber criminals are targeting us relentlessly in a pursuit of profit, with attempts being made nearly every hour of every day, companies must treat cybersecurity as an absolute priority. And things are only going to evolve with AI becoming more powerful, newer threats coming out, and newer ways of attacking. This certainly rings true. And again, you'll see with the cyber resiliency bill, I believe this is really going to help some businesses get a better level of cybersecurity in order to protect not just themselves, but customers as well. There is a cost to inaction. So in the last year, there was an attack on an energy service in the southeast of England, which was estimated to have cost £49 billion in terms of loss. We're now up to 50% of British businesses who have said they've suffered a cyber attack in the last 12 months, quoted from, again, the National Cybersecurity Council Cyber Breaches Survey. And in 2024, the NCSC classified 80 cyber incidents as nationally significant. That is nearly 2 per week. And I would be very interested at the end of the year to see, once they do this survey again, how this has increased. And I believe it would have done, considering what we've seen in the news so far. A bit on the National Cybersecurity Council and Cyber UK. The NCSC is part of GCHQ. It is a government-led organisation that have created things such as the Cyber Essentials Framework, along with very heavily involved in implementing GDPR in the country and providing not only resources to help businesses understand how they might get around those regulations, but also providing auditors and also being very instrumental in writing this framework. Cyber UK is an event that is held every year. It is hosted and sponsored by the NCSC. Lots of very key figures go along to this one. And this year there was lots of discussion about the CSRB, or Cybersecurity Resiliency Bill. Cyber Essentials does remain front and center in all of this. There was a launch of the Defense Cyber Certification, or the DCC, which emphasizes the overall security and resilience of organizations. It's a single organization level assurance that can be presented in support of UK defence procurements, and successfully obtaining and maintaining that certification under the DCC scheme is a clear demonstration of an organisation's ongoing commitment to cyber resilience and supports continued improvement in the UK defence sector. And of course, Cyber Governance Code of Practice. There's a new board legislation to report on what's being done about cyber risk, and additional resources to support businesses and the government in understanding where they may need to invest and where the most areas of business, or what areas are most at risk of cyber attacks. So, a brief overview of the CSRB, and it's important to say that a lot of this, I would say, feels very draft at the moment, but still has plenty of data to understand and will help you potentially start planning for this now rather than later, so you get a good footing when it does finally get launched or get legislated through the government. Now, there is bad and good to this, and I'll get the bad news out of the way first. It's going to be very intensive for organisations to comply. There's a lot more organisations in scope. To give you an example, MSP-wise, you're looking at 50 million revenue and 50 staff for medium MSPs to be included in this, and large MSPs over 250 employees and 50 million turnover, of which there are 1,000 in the UK, and they will all need to comply, and more are going to be added to this. And it's not just them adhering to this, but they also have to make any customers aware of obligations as well. And we can also put anybody who does kind of digital supply services into this box, along with more details about who else is affected, which will be on the next page. So there's broader regulations to the scope. It's expanding on the NIS2 regulation. As said, it's going to be critical suppliers and MSPs who are going to be mainly affected by this, and then the public sector or national supply chains, such as food, electric, gas, water, telecommunications. It's going to hand a lot more powers to the regulators. Some of the challenges around this are going to be certainly around the incident reporting and the technical standards, because they're very comprehensive, and you're going to have to evidence how you meet the standards, and there's really strict requirements about notifying how some of these incidents occur, and a lot of them are saying within 24 hours. And the ICO within the UK are going to have a lot more power to investigate and impose more additional costs and fines if there are breaches. And I have had discussions about this and have quoted this before on different webinars. I said about 2 years ago that if security awareness training did not get implemented onto some kind of government framework in the UK within the next 2 years, I will be surprised. And they have now put this on there. And for me, it is still the most important part. All the technology in the world in front, it is still the human element, which is the biggest risk to businesses. And yes, a very important part of the powers and that the, let's say, technical standards that you have to meet. It is going to be more flexible, which this is the good part of it. So update they'll be able to update frameworks without the need to go through primary legislation. So it means changes and actually adding businesses or adding new threats or new amendments to this are going to go through a lot quicker. And actually, the information that will be provided to businesses will get to them a lot quicker as well. So it means you're staying ahead of any new emerging threats or anything that's actually actively happening at the time. So it might be a ransomware attack where it's a vulnerability in a certain piece of software. You might need to update under this, so the information will come to you quicker, allowing you to patch that gap quicker and keep yourself more safe. And certainly the ability to actually respond to new threats and expanding to new sectors. So whilst I'm going to go through who are going to be the main areas of focus, they may add more to this. So it may change in terms of who is within the scope. And the greater executive powers, it does mean more power to the regulator to enforce the regulations. And this is about influencing the critical parts and protecting our national interests and services. And again, providing more guidance on who's included, who's not, and then making sure that the people who are under the scope do stick to this framework as well. So who is in scope for the CRSB? So we start with essential services, electricity, oil, gas, transport, and healthcare. Healthcare-wise, it's NHS trusts, hospitals, and health service providers. And that's been prompted in part by very high-profile ransomware attacks on London hospitals last year. The energy and utilities is power grids, water supply companies, and gas providers, and they're very high-value targets due to their essential nature and reliance on digital systems. The middle, which is online marketplaces, online search engines, cloud computing services, we would say at least maybe 70% of those 1,000 MSPs that we talked about on the previous slide are probably offering some of these. Online search engines like Google, Bing will need to be adhering to this as well. And we can also put digital service providers as telecommunications, so infrastructure operators, broadband providers, and it's building on the existing Telecom Security Act 2021. You've got those providing core essential IT services to the public sector and UK businesses, and then third-party designated critical suppliers. That's really the interesting one, and that's digital services and supply chains. So data centers, cloud service providers, they're now explicitly brought into this scope due to their role in supporting critical services. There are other ones in there, such as finance and banking. That's anybody taking payment infrastructure. They're already regulated, but it's going to be expanded obligations under the new bill. Transport, rail, air, and maritime transport systems, increasingly digitized and very vulnerable to disruption. And education, universities and research institutions. They're often targeted for intellectual property and sensitive data, and still are 2 or 3 in terms of the most attacked businesses or most ransomware, most breached in the last couple of years. Again, it's not a comprehensive list. Again, the reason that they're doing this is it's all critical stuff. It's all about protecting the country's critical pieces of infrastructure or healthcare or whatever it might be. But there may be others that will become included in this. It's not very clear who else might come under scope. But if a certain vertical or sector does come under attack, then expect it to be added into the bill. So whilst obviously It's a very expanded framework. There's a lot of technical detail on it, and there's lots of resources on the NCSE website to help you understand the CRSB. There's also something called the Cyber Assessment Framework, which is going to be the best way to leverage and meet the CSRB requirements. So the CAF background, or Cyber Assessment Framework background, was brought in and developed and launched against the NIS2 framework, which is a European-based framework, and the government's guidance on meeting this, and their thinking, or the method that they've gone with, is a very pragmatic way and taking a structured approach to CSR, and it aligns with the existing standard of NIS2 and other existing standards as well. So, for instance, if you're implementing something like ISO 27001, you can map the CAF against this and see where you are. And it's going to make things a lot more flexible and a lot more cost effective. And unlike SOC 2, for instance, where there's a significant audit duration, this doesn't have that. And it's a much more practical and efficient way of not just meeting the CRSB, but also things like Cyber Essentials as well. The first point is assisting and conducting in cyber resilience assessments. Number 2, you're focusing on outcomes and not just tick boxes. 3, you're aligning with the existing security guidance and standards. 4th, you're highlighting practical improvements in the security and resilience of your business. 5, offering sector agnostic core frameworks. Number 6, allowing for sector specific extensions. Number 7, support setting meaningful security targets, for example, regulatory expansions. And then 8, remaining simple and cost effective to apply. Again, there are lots of little subsectors within this, which you can see on the NCSE website, and we will be putting that out on a post very soon on LinkedIn. Worth going and reading, because if I were to go through everything, we'd probably be here for at least 2 hours going through every single detail. But again, if you need support or want help understanding it, you can get in contact with us about this and the CAF and also the CRSB. The CAF framework is about 4 main goals, if you like, and the outcome focus is an assurance mechanism. It's designed for essential functions and critical for infrastructure who are part of the scope of the CRSB. And for orgs subject to regulations, it provides a structured way of meeting the 14 objectives across these 4 areas, which are going to be on the next slide. The latest CAF framework, which is 3.2, explicitly reflects expansion to include digital service providers under the regulations and legal obligations. Overall, it's about helping you to implement cybersecurity, as I said, in that structured way, and it's highlighting the most critical parts and making sure that they are protected. So the 4 basic bits of this are managing your security risk, protecting against cyber attacks, detecting cybersecurity events, and minimizing the impact of incidents. We have the 4 main, but then when we actually break it out into the different areas, the 4 bubbles on the outside meet with the middle. In the red bubble, it's governance, establishing clear policies, process and procedures. Risk management, identifying, assessing and understanding the threats to your client systems. The assets management, maintaining a detailed inventory of all the client networks, systems and data. And then supply chain, i.e. where you're buying from, understanding and managing the risks from internal suppliers. Moving across to the green bubble, so security, protection and policies, enforcing secure config, patch management and change control process. Identity access management control, IAM, enforcing multi-factor authentication and least privileged access for all admin accounts. Data, protect stored and electronically transmitted data. systems, hardening your endpoints, your servers, and your virtual environments, and delivering regular security training and phishing simulation. The goal bubble on the bottom left is monitoring, so deploying SIEM and log management solutions, being more proactive and integrating things such as threat intelligence feeds and machine learning tools to support or spot usual activity. And then in the blue bubble, final principles are response and recover, a more comprehensive approach to actually create and rehearse incident response playbooks, have tabletop exercises, which is simulating an attack, red team, blue teaming, and escalation and communication protocols if something does happen, and having that planned and in place and a set playbook to react as fast as possible. And then the final point is lessons, conducting post-incident reviews to update any policies and address any of the root causes that caused the attack in the first place. Simple 5-step guide to CAF. It's understanding the principles and why they are important. Interpret the principles for the organization or your business. Comparing the outcomes described in the principles to your current practices. Identifying the shortcomings and understanding the seriousness of using organizational context and prioritize those issues and shortcomings. And then definitely implementing remediation as the final step, addressing the prioritized issues and using the guidance from the CAF framework to meet the CSRB. Incidentally, the CAF framework, Cyber Essentials, and the CSRB, we constantly talk about 7 layers of cybersecurity, and we match a lot of this again and have done for a while against the Cyber Essentials framework and having protection at every layer. And it's crucial, again, just like the CAF and the CSRB, for protecting your digital assets and minimizing the risk of cyber threats. Going right from the middle of the diagram to mission critical and data security, backup disaster recovery, application security and endpoint security. So that's the patching and vulnerability management, plus, let's say, endpoint hardening and SIEM that you can achieve with endpoint security vendors, network security such as firewalls, perimeter security, password management, identity access management, mobile device management, and then the final layer, which is the human layer, security awareness training, or even things like pen testing, tabletop exercises to simulate attacks and get your business prepared for all eventualities. And we provide a full free assessment based on this 7-layer diagram. So feel free to get in contact with us and have a full security overview to make sure you're meeting all of these goals. In terms of vendors that we have that can help in all of the spaces, with either the CAF or the CSRB, top of the graph diagram notes all of the vendors in that sector for mission critical data security, application, endpoint, network, and human layer. And then the key technology areas in the bottom, the backup and disaster recovery, pen testing, certifications, endpoint security, managed detection and SIEM, network security through firewall, zero trust, privileged access, and then SAT and email protection. I will say that this isn't a comprehensive list. We have more on the next slide, which gives you a bigger overview of other security vendors we can offer. But in general, if there's someone that you'd like to work with and you're not going through your current reseller partner, we'd be more than happy to help you get that solution. Or if you're looking at alternatives to something that might not be working for the business or may have increased in cost, then again, we're very willing to help. And that's everything and the best picture we can provide you around the CSRB. We will obviously provide much more detail once everything is legally signed off by the government. We will obviously post out some links to the NSCS website in order to give you all the resources as to where we've learnt about this. And of course, feel free to get in touch with us using the details you can see there by phone, email. And again, we're more than willing to help, but appreciate you paying attention to the webinar. And I hope you have a good day. And we'll speak again about the next cybersecurity webinar soon.